Charles Tharp, and I was born in Butler, Kentucky, Pendleton County, and I was born on May the 18th, 1925.
Ed Cleaves Jr., my nickname, everybody calls me Nick. I was born in Covington, Kentucky.
Louis E. Smith, born Newport, Kentucky, April 1st, 1925.
Albert Bricking, 3/5/28, Bellevue, Kentucky.
Bernie L. Recton Jr., known as Sonny, born 1928.
It was a great place to grow up. We lived on Chesapeake Avenue, and we were fortunate. The neighborhood was plenty of kids about my age, and that we had games to play all the time. We were very fortunate. We didn't have any finance. We made our own games, but because of the neighborhood we were in, we were fortunate to be able to play all kind of games, had all kind of friends, and the neighbors were all great neighbors. No problems at all with the neighborhood.
Well, we lived next to the railroad tracks on Retreat Street, and we used to get coal, hop coal, put it in buckets and take it around the neighborhood because nobody had anything in those days.
Well, the majority at that time, we had the Wadsworth Watch Case Company in Dayton, and the majority of the people were employed by Wadsworth in the making of watch cases and various other items of jewelry. And other than that, I would say that would be the major occupation for most of the people in Dayton at that time. Of course, Wadsworth has long been gone, and town is not the same.
We always had street games as kids, and we had a park at the foot of Lafayette Avenue, a little mini park. We'd go down there, but when I mean street games, we play like Go Sheepy Go, Kick the Stick, Kick the Can, things like that we'd play in the summertime in the evenings.
I grew up in Covington in the suburb of Lewisburg, and it was a very close community. At that time, probably I would say that 75% of the community were Catholic. It's the smallest Catholic church in the Diocese of Covington, and we knew everybody. In fact, I was probably related to most of the people in the community.
The only thing I can remember is radio was just coming into being. I can remember the people that rented from my mom and dad upstairs, they had a radio, and when the fights was on, when they had the Dempsey and Sharkey and them guys were fighting heavyweight champion, I can remember our house was crowded with people to hear them fights all the time.
I played an accordion on radio with the Wurlitzer Accordion Orchestra, and my brother played guitar and harmonica. Another brother played an accordion, and we had a piano in the house. A lot of us fiddled with the piano, but nobody accomplished anything.
We didn't much have anything like that. It's like mentioned before about the radio. That's about it. We made up our own games and did our own thing.
Bob Hartman lived up the street. He'd bring his fiddle over. We'd get the Harry James on the recordings, and we'd go wild. Played Monopoly all night out on the porch.
In Dayton, well, we had a skating rink. We had Tacoma Park, which was a big amusement park at that time when I was growing up. It had a roller coaster that ran along Mary Inglis Highway. I rode that when I was a kid, scared me half to death. And they had a merry-go-round and little cars that you could ride in. And it was a full-blown amusement park. And of course, the pool was the biggest attraction. When I was in high school, I played sophomore, junior, and senior year. I played in a local dance band called the Symphony in Blue, which originated in Bellevue and under the direction of a fellow named Glenn Clark Miller. And so we played most of the school dances in the area. We played a lot of the Catholic church dances over in Covington. And it really was a good experience. I couldn't exactly remember it. Now, of course, I was in Dayton at the time, and I remember hearing about it on the radio, but where I was, I can't specifically nail it down.
We were in the Latin School schoolyard. They were dedicating the new building when the announcement was made that Pearl Harbor was hit, and there was a retired captain standing next to my dad. And he said he had served there, and he knew what it was like, and he said, before the war ends, your son will see military service, which was absolutely the truth.
At that time, I thought the next day, we'd go over and wipe them out. At that time, at our age, we thought we were the greatest, and we'd take care of anybody. I mean, but little did we know that the true facts about it.
I was just 13 years old, and I can remember this was a Sunday afternoon, and I was home. And we heard about it on the radio, and we were all very much concerned about it. And I guess at that age, war, I didn't know what it was all about. So that's about it. And I learned more as we went along, as we saved our scrap metal, papers, aluminum foil off chewing gum wrappers and rolled it up into balls and things like that.
I know that real well. My dad, Tony Schmidt, had the poultry shop in Bellevue, and my brother Dave, which wasn't allowed to carry a shotgun then, he carried a stick. And we were down Bratton County hunting rabbits. We came home, pulled up in front of the house, and Mom ran out and says, Pearl Harbor was attacked by the Japanese. When nobody knew where Pearl Harbor was. I didn't know anything about it. It was scary. We had the wardens at night, turn your lights out, pull your shades down. Mom was scared to death, thought the Japs were going to fly over and get us.
Well, you know, at that time, there was supposedly a shortage of food because they wanted a great deal of food to go to the troops. So they issued red stamps and blue stamps so you could buy meat, you could buy different types of food. They put stickers on your windshield. You can only buy a certain amount of gasoline depending on if you used it for occupation or if you just used it for pleasure. And I don't know of anybody that complained about the rationing.
Patriotism, everybody, they put up with they started with that, I think Ed was talking about the rationing. I remember the rationing, the food, the meat, you get something for meat, and the big thing was the automobiles trying to get gas. Everybody was trying to get the gas cards.
Well, I can remember people flying their flags more, and every home that had someone in service flew the little blue flag with a star in it.
Well, a lot of it was the large number of people who were enlisting. I think probably was the biggest indication that everybody was behind it, and we just couldn't believe how this could happen to us, and we were just dumbfounded, really.
Well, I think I was more concerned about the people that were in there, the men that were taken. And it really, I guess, and my brother, I had an older brother, went in service, so it was a concern for all of us at that time as growing up.
I had a lot of friends went in the service. Down on the field down there's a monument down there for Eugene Morris. He was killed. No, people don't even know that's down there probably.
I couldn't wait to go. I wanted to go right away. My mom said no. She wouldn't sign for me.
Well, my experience? Well, I can't recall that it really affected it a whole lot.
Well, I would have enlisted that day, but I was only 13 years old. And a couple of my classmates went in when they were 16, lying about their age, and I don't know how they got by with the birth certificates, but somebody was altering birth certificates.
I went in August 31st, 1943, and took my boot training at Williamsburg, Virginia. Followed that with a advanced training with the Marines in Quonset Point, Rhode Island. And then from there, I went down to Gulfport, Mississippi, and had some more advanced training. And then from Gulfport, Mississippi, they sent us to Port Hueneme, California, which was right close to Hollywood, and San Francisco.
I did not sign up. I was drafted, went over to Cincinnati, took my physical. They put us on a bus, hauled us off to Fort Knox. It was that quick.
Although my mom said she wouldn't sign for me, why, we went down from, we worked about 2 or 3 hours that morning, then we went down to Cincinnati. The guy asked me if I wanted to join. I said, yeah, Marine Corps. And he said, your mom signed? I lied. I told him, yeah, she had signed. So then they sent me over for a physical across the street, and it took about an hour or two, and come back, and they said, oh, you're capable, you're breathing, you're warm. So they says, I had papers that I was supposed to have signed and brought back in 10 days. And when I went home from there, why, my mom said she still wouldn't sign. But then when them 10 days was up, why, we got a letter from the Marine Corps about where them papers were. My mom was worried about I'd get in trouble. So she said she had signed, so she did, and I took the papers over, and I was sworn in on February the 26th, 1943.
I signed up when I was 17 over in Cincinnati, but like I said, I had to do all the testing up in Detroit, because I was flying a little airplane out of Lincoln Airport when I was 16 years old. And that's why they accepted me into the program.
Well, I didn't sign up, I was drafted. I was 18 years old in March of 1946. And at that time, the war had ended. Officially, it wasn't declared over until December 31st, 1946. But they were letting draftees out, so they were still drafting. When I went in, it was what they called the second last draft, and there was another draft, large draft in November of 1946.
I spent a great deal of time out at sea. There was one period of time when I was gone for 2 months, another one 4 months, another one 6 months. And that 6 month cruise, I had some very unusual experiences. One, I took 800 sailors to Rome. We pulled into Naples and I took them to Rome. We had no problem with 800 sailors because most of them wanted to see the Pope. So they weren't the rabble-rousers that I had with me. The rabble-rousers were in Naples trying to see Lucky Luciano.
Well, we went to Iwo. From Iwo, I got wounded. From Iwo, I got on a hospital ship on down, went to Saipan in the hospital. From Saipan in the hospital, I went to Hawaii in the hospital. After I got out of hospital in Hawaii, I spent 9 months there until boarded a battleship from Hawaii back to San Diego, where we went to the Great Lakes for discharge. Got discharged December the 1st, 1945.
We were replacing the men that were coming home that had enough points. So I went to Korea at that time in 1946, and that was to relieve men that were over there so they could return home.
I was a tank mechanic. I was a recovery chief. I ran the recovery. And we were out, I was there 16 months, we was out in the field 13 months on border patrol and so forth. It's gunnery school and different things.
When I got in the service, they put me in the unit's band, and I played in the band, CB band, and then when I got overseas, I was able to participate and play for all the USO shows that came into the Pacific. I played the Bob Hope, Jack Benny, Jack Carson, Betty Hutton shows. Any USO show that stopped at our island, we played for it. We had an island orchestra made up of Seabees, Marines, and Navy.
First came home, we wound up coming down the rail here on the Ohio side, crossed the bridge here and went to Camp Breckenridge, Kentucky. And that's where they let us out.
It was a big celebration. Dad met me and Mom at the Union Terminal. I came in from Chicago on the train, and we were just, well, not just them, as most of the family was there waiting for me. So it was a big party for us all.
After I came home, I went to work for CG&E at August 31st of 1948 and stayed with them for 42 years.
You also hear about these ones getting parades out, no such thing. I come from Great Lakes. I got enough money to get on a train, come from there down to Cincinnati, got on a bus in Cincinnati and got off the bus down at the bottom of Chesapeake Avenue, nobody there, up the street, no neighbors out, no nothing. Went home and that was it.
I went right back into the business with my dad because I had been repairing watches and clocks. Prior to my going into the Navy the first time, I was repairing watches and clocks. So eventually when Dad and Mr. Landman retired, my wife and I bought the business.
I think a neighbor ran over to the garage and said, "We're being attacked," because I was at work then.
I was walking down Fairfield Avenue when my son called me in. He had a television in the back room, and he said, "Dad, somebody just flew a plane into one of the Twin Towers." And my wife had been in the Twin Towers about a year before that when we were up in New York on a tour. And I was absolutely shocked when that happened. And then when I was standing there and the second one went in, it was just unbelievable.
September the 11th, I was in Dr. Howard Bell's office, who is an eye surgeon. We were waiting to get into his office for the exam, and flashed on screen, CNN showed the plane going into the first tower. And it was just a shock.
Well, I figured that here are some more of these nutty terrorists that are trying to get us into the war again. You know, my feelings is we're in too many places around the world today. They're trying to make us the policemen of the world, and that, to me, it just rubs me the wrong way. Let them police themselves and not put us in all these areas of danger. I just don't agree with it.
Well, you know how I did it. Right now, give it to them.
Well, I think we were all in shock, and the community was in shock. And I believe that there was a great deal of patriotism revived at that time.
We lived in Fort Thomas, and the people out there, some of them just sort of thought it was a joke that we weren't responsible for what happened, and so what? It's just one of those things that happened. But it just aggravated the hell out of me.
They all was up in arms. They all wanted to go over and get them, that's all I know.
I don't really remember seeing too much of a reaction in Dayton, which is where I spend most of my time, Dayton and Fort Thomas. I live in Fort Thomas, and everybody was, of course, very much upset the fact that some people would do that to us, and but it was not a surprise to a lot of people, I'm sure, because things like that have been going on all over the world.
Well, you know, it's a different world today. We're fighting a war on every corner of the earth. Patriotism you don't see as much. Because every day you're reading the paper, another GI was killed or another Marine was killed. And we got to get the hell out of there. Bring everybody back here. And I always said, protect our own wealth here. And the hell with all them bastards over there.
Yet the people that complained about these things were the very ones that realized that freedom means a great deal to them, yet they don't pay attention to who sacrificed their lives and their families and everything defending these things.
No, not really. There was too much was politics. Everything was politics at that time.
Well, I think we were all in shock, and the community was in shock. And I believe that there was a great deal of patriotism revived at that time. And everybody was had the feeling like, we've got to do something about this. What can we do? And so I think there was patriotism at that time.
I feel we're all very fortunate that we live in a country such as we do. I'm proud to be an American.
Well, I think I had a nice family. I've had a great life, and I've done pretty much of what I want to do. I got a great family, and I don't know of anything else I can say.
Well, I was treated great. I got, when I got the Purple Heart, gave me disability, and it actually opened up my chances of getting a job at the post office. And I've been very fortunate. I'm happy the way things turned out.
If you had gone to foreign countries, and I was in many of these countries after World War II, and saw how people lived, you just wouldn't believe it. In the city of Trieste, when I was over there, I could walk up to any person, or any of my shore patrol could walk up to any person and demand identification. If they did not have it, we put them right across the border into Yugoslavia. When I was in Greece, the living conditions were very poor, that we could not eat anything. They only recommended that we eat at the King George Hotel in Athens. Sanitary conditions were very poor. I saw about a 300 or 400 pound fish lying on the open market one day, and the rats were after the fish, the cats were after the rats, the dogs were after the cats. And that thing lay there, and they were taking chunks off that from day to day. And after 3 or 4 days, the whole dock was just terrible, the odor. And that's all people had to eat. And you went to the southern part of Italy. Do you know, if you look on television right now, the city of Palermo, Sicily, is no different than it was in 1946. Those people in the southern part of Italy don't do anything except sit and want American money. The people in northern Italy, completely different breed. You never know that there was a bombing in the northern part of Italy. Some of the foreigners just want American money, and they don't want to do anything. And I was just proud to be an American, to go around and see the way people live over here and why they cherish their freedom. People in other countries, probably even today, don't know what freedom is. Look at the mess that we have. We have military troops right now in 120 countries and military bases in 56. Now that is almost hard to believe, but it's the truth.
Well, I love Bellevue, Kentucky. I've been here all my life. I've done everything there is to do. Unless you find something new for me to do, I might try that.
Well, what I value the most is I'm the town historian. I love to delve in history of the area, not just Dayton, but I've got quite a lot of history on Bellevue too. Those are my two major cities, because I always felt from the beginning the two should have been one, not two cities. Because if you didn't live here, you can't tell where you're going from one city into the other. Of course, you can now because of the business activity that goes on in Bellevue compared with Dayton. But I've always felt that the two should be one community.